In this episode of Casting Shadows, we are looking at one of those experiences where our passion and interest for playing a particular game might far exceed our exposure to and experience with some of the elements that make that game exactly what it is and maybe exactly what compels us. This time, that particular matchup is about rank and rank structures, social status, and the differences in them and how they inform the way we interact as our characters in play. All right, so in keeping with the new tradition, I'm not alone. How you doing, Scott?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you doing?
Well, it's cold here, but there's no snow, and I like that just fine.
Yeah, you guys got lucky. It's cold here, and we got snow, and we got ice. And if you're not from the South, if you don't understand how humidity works in the South, humidity doesn't ever go away. So 90% humidity when it's 5 degrees out means it goes right to your bones.
The joy of aging.
Yeah, that's terrible.
All right. So I asked Scott to join me today to talk about something that I think is quite helpful in games is how to deal with the issue of rank. There are a lot of games out there now, and have been all along, that include characters of rank, whether that's a military rank or some kind of organizational rank or status rank. So things like Twilight 2000 and the Morrow Project and your game.
God, yeah, Raven, hell, Recon from
Right.
Palladium era.
Way back.
God's Star Frontiers really has military stuff to it.
Star
if you
Trek.
want. Yeah, Star Trek. My gosh, what was the we'll talk about rank. Gangbusters.
Gangbusters.
It's another one that's gonna have
Right,
rank
a
to it.
leveled game of
Yeah. The status is top secret, James Bond. Yeah. There's a lot. I think there's more than people realize.
Right. Or at least something that can be brought in as an element
Yeah.
of play. And then once you have it, then the players around the table may find, especially I think if they have less experience dealing with that kind of social structure in their real lives, may find that it can be awkward.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. And for a lot of people, they're already having bosses and task managers and project managers at work, and so gaming is. I need to get away from that. And now you want me to role play a game where now I have more of that.
Right. Or worse, why is it that
Yeah.
the youngest guy at the table has got the highest rank?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It can be fun, but I think it can become a problem probably pretty quickly, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even games that it might not like be on the tin, like a Twilight 2000, you're part of a military unit trying to do something.
Yeah.
We were talking before we started recording about games like Leverage, where it's a more social organization where there's an obvious leader, or the A-Team,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So the perspective I'm bringing to our conversation is a lifetime spent in hierarchical corporate management. And Scott, what are you bringing to the table?
30 years of the military, from working my way up from E3 to E9. So, yeah, I've hit every enlisted rank along the way. And then working at the executive level as a master chief, or a command master chief specifically, which means I answer to commanding officers directly, flag officers, which are your generals and admirals, and brief them and have conversations with them that you won't see them having with other people.
Right. So there may have been some related interactions during those times.
Yeah, and It's yes, and at that level, it's omnipresent, but you're also you're also so far removed from, like, the realities of that's not really fair. You're not really you're not really in the trenches every day, and you've been a leader and a commander so long at that point, and then you've got this master chief, and master chiefs are normally to make E9 for average navies, I don't know, say 20 years. So you've already got someone who's done 2 decades of service, and they know a lot, and now they're considered experts, and so like when I talk to my boss, my commanding officer, it's not yes sir, no sir. That's not how we discuss anything. We don't use first names. Some people do though. At that level, it just depends on what their comfort level is. Like my last boss, he was very formal about everything, and the one before him, he didn't give a shit. He didn't care. He wanted to talk about hunting and all that jazz. So yeah, it really varies. I've had admirals who call me by my first name and they just don't care. And then from the officer perspective in the Navy, they have a weird tradition where the higher ranking officer will call the junior officers by their first name, but that is not allowed to be reciprocated whatsoever. And so it's weird to hear an admiral be like, Steve, what do you think? And this young ensign is like, oh. So yes, I have a breadth of experience with this topic.
Right, which I think is a cool place to start with. It's not all the same everywhere, that there's still individual human variety present, even within the confines of a rigid structure, or what seems
Yeah.
like a rigid structure on the outside. I certainly have had employers who are my senior in age and way above me in position
Yeah,
within
C-suite, right?
within the company, who just wanted to hang out
Yeah, yeah,
with me. Like, I was at the top level that I could go as a foreign professional in the company,
yeah.
and they're at that rank too, in a different silo. And hey, let's go be friendly, but always being mindful that this person is the employer of of your whole site, and
Yeah.
not letting go of that. But in the game, it's supposed to be fun. How can rank possibly be fun in a game?
Don't know. I'm like, I told you earlier is like, I think if you have I could run Task Force Raven or any other military game with a group of military people, and I've played with all military before, and it works fairly well. Just because we get it, and we're just like, okay, cool. We know how to behave, but we're gonna take pot shots at each other. And so I think the verisimilitude is a little bit better. And I think with the civilian side, um, I think that's where the trouble starts. Nobody wants to be told what to do, and everybody wants to be the boss. And Hollywood has really misconstrued how we really behave in the military, to a high degree, and to how the structures work. And then no, you just can't get it right unless you have those experiences. And even if you have the advisors on set, they're going to get things wrong. Like I told you, I watched a SEAL team with my wife, and it's like, you know, the wall behind me has a bunch of coins with, tridents and spearheads from special operations. And it's like, I've worked with those cats, and even I'm sitting at home and I'm just like, that's not how it would work at all. We would never say that to each other, especially in the Chiefs mess. That's not how we talk. So, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It'd be fun, but oh, you're a civilian. Do you like playing games that have military rank or rank structures, I guess?
I find I'm drawn to games where the characters take it upon themselves to go on a mission, in, like, to put it in one word, like Call of Cthulhu. I mean, really, you've got a group of unrelated people identifying something that they cannot let stand, that puts themselves at great risk, and they go forward, and they try to resolve it. They become a team, but then in that team, we start to quickly identify that this person and that person have different skills and abilities, and different resilience, or the like. And So we wind up with not exactly a meritocracy, but we have deferment to
Sure.
to expertise, which doesn't map one to an official formal rank, um, but I think shows that it's possible to play with rank in a game. I
Yeah.
love the Moral Project, which definitely has rank.
Yeah.
You know, whether or not the group of players chooses to make it a definite part of play.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah. Sure. Fallout 2000 the same way. Like you said, technically you're US survivors behind enemy lines. However, comma, it's also the apocalypse essentially. So
you're on your
I
own.
know that's
Good luck.
yeah, and to me that's an interesting story from the military perspective. Is like, okay, cool. You've got the dumb young lieutenant who's just graduated college and is in charge of this E7 or E8, who's been on boots on the ground for years. And at some point, like, well, we're not real military anymore. Or are we real military because you have the morals and the ethics to with uphold all of that stuff? And so I think it's a good conversation. So when you play, I know like you and I play a lot of Call of Cthulhu. So Delta
Right.
Green by virtue would have ranks, and I know it's not always military, but when I tell you that the intelligence community has a rack and stack, that is a real thing. The DIA is a laughing stock of the IC. And that's just a reality. The DIA does, the Defense Intelligence Agency, they do human, they do a few of the tasks, but if you're talking human collection versus the CIA, the granddaddy of what we do, then it's just like, yes, of course the CIA has, they look down their noses. Those are all the Yale kids, and they're like, well, obviously you couldn't join the big leagues, you had to settle for that. And so if you understand that social structure within there, like, oh, you're an NSA guy, okay, okay, nerd, why don't you go make a report for us, help us out here, and leave the operating to the big kids, who have been to the farm, things like that. But yeah, so do you play a lot of Delta Green, or
Yeah, I play it more than I run it.
okay,
And the,
okay,
the thing I like in it is the idea that, again, you have that team, but it's being assembled by someone else, someone
hmm,
ostensibly higher up the food chain, drawing in a U.S. Marshal and drawing in a
yeah,
firefighter and drawing in,
yeah, yeah,
a
yeah,
variety of people who are used to having a certain rank or status in their own organization.
yeah.
But how does it exactly work in,
Yeah. And
you
it's a
know,
little bit easier in the field, which is probably where you would default to storytelling wise of because everyone's kind of on that. You even out in the field. And so you're not gonna, you may that's the thing with the military and like all the services connected to the military is we love dark humor. Everyone knows that. But people don't like hearing our dark humor because it is really bad some days. And that extends out to the civilians who are working with us on the IC side. So you're gonna have that ribbing, like I was just ribbing DIA, one of my best friends online in life. He's a very high muckety muck with that team, and he's just like, stop saying it. And we're like, I'm just saying, bro. You know, um, but like you'd have that ribbing, and you're right. There's that everyone's used to it, but when you start blending in the field, I think that's where you would see the bonds form a little bit. It's just if for a GM perspective, it would be incumbent upon the GM to put the outside pressures if there's a known mission or from above, or you're going to have, some of the tricks that you've talked about of not using characters, using different characters and making them hear the fallout of things is like, okay, cool. Your parent agency sometimes is going to want to know what's happening to you. And if you're a law enforcement, if you're law enforcement LEO, if you're military involved in these tasks, you don't just get to do that. That's not how the federal government really works. There's a few programs that are like that, but in general, if you're assigned, there'll be random information will come up some days. Like, hey, we need this. They didn't file this paperwork for us. They got to clear their travel card every 30 days. So yeah,
um,
yes.
I'm working on a one shot now using World War Cthulhu,
Oh, right on.
which was done by Cubicle 7. And
Nice.
that series in the middle, Call of Cthulhu, shifted to 7th edition. So the last part of the line was World War Cthulhu Cold War.
Okay.
And so you've got World War II era structures presented in the game, and you've got Cold War era structures presented in the game. And through it all, there's a Delta Green style organization present, which is, Section 46, which again is built. It's the organization within the organization, to further compartmentalize things that intelligence officers were not meant to know.
Right.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's pretty interesting how
Nice.
the game lays out a social pressure on the investigators. It's like you're going on an operation to wherever, right?
Yeah.
This Iron Curtain style situation, and this is what you're being tasked to do by the organization you actually work for. SIS or MI6 or whichever it turns out to be, in what
Yeah.
era you're playing in. But then there will be your other mission, and
Yeah.
you have to figure out
Nice.
how to do your mission and do
Yep.
your mission without,
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And that's, the thing too about some of this stuff is that depending on the decade that you're in, like military wise or in government in general, is that really informs a lot of the bureaucracy and the attitude and that social structure. GWAT was probably I crazy as it is, I'm glad I served during the GWAT because it was, cowboy time and we got shit done. Sorry, you got to bleep that out. But now, like once the GWAT, it was not over, but about 2010, 2012, we started seeing all the warrior poets exodus, and that was leaving the people who were just purely bureaucratic, or or it might have been long-term warriors to stay longer, but for the most part, people were tired and they left. And then you have these bureaucrats moving up the race, and then eventually that's all you have because the new fresh fish aren't going to war anymore. And I've always tried to explain like the Navy that we're at after that, the Navy was warfighter, and then we took a post World War One, pre World War Two is kind of where we're sitting bureaucratically right now. And that is so because you went into the Cold War, I was like, man, I served originally in 1990 to 93, and that was such a vastly different time than serving during the global war on terror. Yeah, it's night and day. In the 80s, the same way, because there wasn't much really going on for your average person. It was just, what, Grenada? Okay. Panama? Oh no.
right. So you have that
Yeah.
post-war fear, big
Yeah.
budgets, respect, you know,
You know? Yeah.
even if
Yeah.
it's only internal, but there's a lot of,
Yeah. A lot of P's
kudos
and Q's,
for,
yeah.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then it's a tax burden.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Something
Blood, skin, and
happens and everyone's like, "Nah, let's just do this."
yeah.
Yeah. And then in between the services is really like the Navy, for E7, E8, and E9, we're very close. It's the chief's mess. And so when you're selected for a chief, which is E7, you join the mess, you go through initiation, and then it's first name basis, E7, E8, and E9. We all call each other first names. We don't do it out of the mess normally. You'll still people slip. It just is what it is. But you try not to do it in front of the young sailors, or the wardroom, the officer side. But it's that we are all considered equal. And yes, we have rank structure, as a master chief. Eventually, if I say something will go, it will go if it has to come to that point. But the whole point is you have this worldwide mess that we get things accomplished and we get things done. Um, they use the Navy Chiefs mess in the war in global war on terror more than more than they did at other services because of that ability. I pick up a phone and I make a phone call somewhere in the world and we have things moving and getting done. The Air Force made a comic about it, during the GWAT. And it was, this is a black mamba. If it bites you, you got, 30 seconds to live. This is some kind of deadly spider. If it bites you, you got 30 seconds to live. This is the Navy chief. If they get their hands on you, make peace with your God. And it's just a reputation we have. But like the other services do not do that. It is almost verboten. And a buddy of mine, he was a senior chief in the Navy, got out, joined the Army, was a 7 in the Army, and he met his sergeant major, 89 for the first time. And where he would call me Scott upon meeting, he did that to the sergeant major. The sergeant major lost his goddamn mind. And because of the Army takes rank structure incredibly serious all the way up. And so yeah, so even when you're playing these things, it's like if you don't understand that, it's like, oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, everyone's vastly different. I mean, Air Force calls each other by first name regardless of pay grade. It's the weirdest thing. Ah,
I think it's an excellent insight into the variety that we can bring into it. I mean, obviously, playing the game, we can have
yeah, yeah,
rank be as important as the iron rations on our original
yeah,
D&D character
exactly.
sheet.
Yeah.
It's just a detail, or we can have it actually be a factor of play,
Yeah.
like you would. We were talking
Yeah.
again before recording about vampire, right? You
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
variety of different status mechanisms within vampire, whether that's the age of the character or the perceived age of the character, the generation of the character, the actual resource, the ability to draw on resources of.
Yeah.
Okay, there's lots of ways to gain a presence of forcefulness and a position of real or perceived authority, and
Yeah.
in in that game.
And I think Vampire, it's probably one of the games where it's real.
Mm.
So I don't play a lot of Vampire, and we talked about that. Like, I love the idea of it now, but from just reading it and understanding it, I'm like, oh, okay, so we just want you to tell the prince, piss up or rope. Be like, well, that's not going to end well. I
Right.
don't. Kinfolk doesn't necessarily mean kinfolk forever. I don't think in that game.
It's interesting, right? Like, and we can see this if you're talking about gangbusters earlier, right?
Yeah, yeah,
We in a mafioso kind of game in the mob, or the syndicate, or however you
yeah,
want to look at criminal activity. There's a reason why they brought you into that organization. There's something that they expect from you,
yeah,
and you have a certain obligation to deliver. And if you're not meeting those obligations, whether it's a corporate world, or I think a military world, or a
yeah,
criminal organization, or some other type of organization, even an NGO, right, trying to build a dam somewhere.
yeah.
If you're not pulling your weight, there comes this time. But what does it mean to pull your weight in that? You know, does there have to be a certain kind of obsequious, like
Right, yeah. Are you
respect paid up to?
are we doing performance evaluations per character?
One of the things that I found I've really liked in the beginning of a campaign is the presence of a feel of human resources.
Okay, yeah,
As weird
yeah.
as it sounds,
No,
but
no,
one
no,
of the
yeah.
one of the better BattleTech campaigns I played in, we were on Solaris 7 and various places, and hearing rumors of this juicy contract. And so normally in a campaign, you get the juicy contract and you start to play. But we had to go and apply for the job. So we had to make multiple characters before the campaign started. So you got your favorite character that you want to get the job. So you're trying really hard to get the job. It's really, really interesting, and it raised the stakes. And that's rank staring you right in the face, right? That
Yeah,
person who's going to be an important NPC um, is your boss, and you really wanted their favor, or this cool character that you want to play is going to be relegated to the dustbin, and you have to play this other character that you also made just in case.
and see, that is devilish.
Yeah.
That is devilish. Oh my god, I gotta go and do that now with every game I run from now on. Like, I need you to make 4 characters. You're the hiring manager is gonna decide who you need. How do you feel you fit into this job? What makes
That's right.
what makes the dungeon speak to you?
When I say murder hobo, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Yes.
Oh my god.
So it was really, really interesting.
That's
To
yeah.
finish off that story. I mean, the questions were about our thoughts about the neighboring house,
Oh, yeah.
and like how could they trust us in a situation where we were in direct competition for we're trying to become salvage operators, right? So they needed a certain number of mercenaries to be able to go in and operate defensive mechs and aerospace in order to cover these salvage operations. And if the enemy was rolling up, are we likely to go charge off for guts and glory, or are we going to cut bait and run, or
Yeah,
it was
that's
really
awesome.
interesting. I like
I'm
that
sure
as a
everyone listening is like, no, I would not play that.
I would not play that game. What do you mean I have to earn my? But it's like the player wasn't being interviewed; the character was being interviewed.
Right? Yeah. Honestly, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, I liked it. And then in vampire, mage, werewolf in particular, and then in a totally different way in wraith. In my experience, much less so in changeling. These social disequalities are immensely important, but maybe not so much in the day-to-day operations, right? So kind of like what you were
Sure, yeah.
talking about. There's a time and a place for rank, and there are certain situations where it's set aside
Yeah.
in order to get things done.
Yeah, sure. Because your day to day is gonna be normal. You're in the bullpen wherever you are, and I think everyone is kind of on a level. And then yeah, you've got a switch gets flipped, and then you have to go into structure mode. It
Right.
just is what it is, man.
In
Yeah.
in language training, we talk about social register,
Oh,
right?
sure.
So the how you automatically switch uh, how you speak and how you construct sentences
Yeah.
and which words you include or exclude
Yeah.
based on the dynamics of the situation. So the way you talk to your mother is usually not the way that you talk to your best friend, and not usually the way that you talk to your the guy who owns the company that you work for, but it might be the way you talk to your boss, and it might not be the way you talk to your boss. And how do you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Normally, yeah. Normally, I think it's cued off of the superior or the senior. Normally but but yeah, you never know. Are they just this is a one way, you know, pleasantry? But yeah, and that's the thing. I think if you don't speak for a foreign language, like if all you speak is English, I think you misunderstand the impact of the difference in very many languages of you and you, which we used to have as D and Zao, and we got rid of it. And I'm like, no, that's very significant. And someone will let you know the moment you use the wrong you.
Yeah,
Like Chechen has their we has two forms, and one means we as in us Chechens, or we as in everyone gathered around right now.
it's
And
really
it's like,
interesting to
oh,
make the distinction,
yeah, it's
right?
wild. Yeah, it's wild. Like, oh, you mean the community or the people in this room? Like, okay. And when you're dealing with, some of the things that I dealt with, like that word becomes incredibly important.
No.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
it's crazy.
do you or don't you want that to be a factor of
Yeah, right. Yeah,
your
yeah.
game, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but Star Trek, we played a lot of Star Trek, and I've played Star Trek in a group of players where we had some interesting social dynamics going on. This was our Star Wars group. We played together for about 3 years. But for a lot of people in the group, that game was their first role playing game, not their first.
Oh.
It was their first, you know, non-computer based role playing game.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So the
fair.
first time for rolling weird dice, the whole nine
Yeah.
yards. So socially, they're at a lower tier of experience.
Yeah.
And I don't normally play with people that I work with, but in that case I did, right? So now we're also playing with our different ranks
Yeah.
within the organization, right? We've got supervisors, we have managers, and we have the
Yeah.
the regular guy
Man.
as a part of the group. And so that exists, but also doesn't exist. And, in the Star Wars game, we have a captain and co-owner of the ship, and the crew, or are they a
Yeah.
family?
Well, it's kind of loosey goosey, right? It's that pulp space opera. And so it's just like, okay, cool. We all hang out and argue. However, comma.
So when we get to Star Trek
Yeah.
Adventures really wants a player in the captain's seat.
And do they call that out? Because like a lot of people would
And
be like, oh, I just put an NPC as there as captain, and then we can all So yeah, okay, they call it out. Good.
It's normally how, oh, we couldn't do
Yeah.
that. So, well, there's always the NPC captain. The
Yeah.
first time I ran it, I kept saying, we need it. We need a captain. We need a captain. We need a captain. And they're like, no, we're not comfortable. So I said, all right, well, then we need an executive officer. So they were fine with the executive officer. So we have an exec, and then we had everyone else was just a member of their department, and they had certain ranks, but they
Yeah,
were
sure.
most of the characters were the same rank.
Yeah.
A couple of junior grades and not junior but not senior grades. I don't know how that's
Yeah.
explained, but
Yeah.
um, but this executive officer, and so we played through. It was a Star Trek adventure, so we played through an adventure, and then the captain retired,
Good
and
on
the
you.
the XO was promoted.
Nice. Good on you. Good. And that is very realistic, actually. That's yeah.
So, and then everyone was fine with it at that point, because my feeling about Star Trek was that, um, except in the heat of battle or some time pressure where a bunch of orders had to be issued, the structure for the show, which was informing our play,
Mhm.
was the captain is like a central clearinghouse of data, of information, right? So he gets a report from the helm, he gets a report from sensors, he gets a report from science or medicine or engineering or whatever, and he makes an informed decision based on everybody's input, which has everybody involved in the decision, and one person saying, okay, well, this is the course of action. And then there was always the opportunity to protest
Mhm.
in Star Trek. But Captain, important detail from engineering, and that
Yeah.
either would or would not sway.
Yeah.
So it was almost like a debate rather
Yeah.
than authoritarian rule kind of.
Yeah. No, and that's pretty accurate, actually. I just left Japan from a destroyer. Two different CEOs, great guys, two different ways of handling business. But you guys didn't actually play off. Like the CEO's not going to entertain sass or like it's they want to, and they're not going to entertain a back and forth for very long. But part of the job of the CEO is also to mentor their department heads, the executive officer to become a commanding officer, and then those junior officers. Like the CEO would be on the bridge, and when you're on the CEO may be on the bridge, but you still have an officer of the deck, and the officer of the deck is responsible for what goes on the ship. They're essentially, they are the CEO's voice and eyes and ears at that moment. So even though you got the skipper, sitting in their high chair, it's literally a giant chair that is elevated so you can see out the windows. That junior officer, these are ensigns. There's E1, O1s, and O2s, and they're making these calls and they're telling Helm what to do. So they're doing that call, and then most of the time there's no disagreement. And every once in a while, though, the CEO would pipe in if it was gonna be a bad call, and be like, why would you make that call? And then they give them a chance to explain themselves. And then it's like, okay, well, no, well, your course correction needs to be this. And then they would course correct to keep, because safety of crew and safety of ship are paramount over everything else. And then carry on with that. And then doing the debriefs when we have major evolutions, we'll go to the bridge and we have every department and then that is involved gets to debrief everything. Engineering has their say. If we can't make speed, then engineering he'll have to explain why. So yeah, it's actually pretty cool. You guys did not play very far off of like, you know, except for if there's any prolonged arguments. At that point, I see I was going to entertain it for a little bit, then be like, stop. Or if you're one of my bosses, he's very colorful, because it's ultimately it's their decision and they have to, and that's what they're weighing in their heads of like, if anything happens, do I go to jail? Do I lose my commission and am I out of the Navy? And that's a lot
Well,
of their factor of how they're making all this calculus. Yeah, it's crazy. That's cool though. Some of you guys did good,
cool.
except
No, no, no,
no, no, okay, no
no
accepts.
real
Okay,
accept with that one.
nice,
In that
nice.
first one, then when we played it subsequently, there was no issue with playing a captain.
Oh, right on.
it had become okay. And by that time, of course, they're used to in Star Trek Adventures that it's a troop style play game. So your
Sure.
main character might be a doctor like McCoy, who
Yeah.
will or won't go on the away mission to the planet. And so you've got
Sure.
other characters to draw on. And that game has mechanisms in play for characters to be created very quickly in play. Well, we
Oh.
need a botanist or whatever. So, oh, I'll play the botanist, and then they
Oh,
can
right
just
on.
quickly make the character and off they go. So
That's cool.
by that point, a
Yeah, I
lot
like
of
it.
the player worry about someone telling them what to do and just kind of running it dictatorially
Yeah.
um, had evaporated.
Yeah. That's cool. And was it the same group between both games?
Yeah.
Okay, so they got comfortable with that executive officer idea, which is well, the reason I laughed when you said that they're fine with the XO because it's like, well, the XO is also normally a senior officer. You know, they are going to be a commanding officer. They're going to apply for it and get commanding stuff, unless they really suck. But yeah, so they're still the authoritarian because the XO's job is to have the department heads tell him what is happening, you know, in a pre-brief and then brief the CO. So it's just it's neat to see that we're like, oh, they fell right into the roles of junior officers and department heads.
The I kind of drew on the structure from my own corporate life where I run the department and
Sure.
all of the people working for me are independent. You know, I won't be in a classroom with them and I won't be off site
Yeah.
with them
Yeah.
as they're doing something.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not going to be working 24 hours a day either. So there are supervisors between me
Yeah.
and them.
Yeah.
And it's interesting what someone will tell me versus what someone will tell a supervisor,
Oh
what
yeah.
someone will
Yes.
tell a coworker,
Yes. Yes.
and all that dynamic. And, but
Yeah.
ultimately, you're there serving the mission. You know, you expect
Yes.
that the client will be served by what it is they
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, because everyone has a boss and the mission is important and yeah, it's pretty wild. That's pretty interesting, actually. It's neat to hear, like, especially non-military, non-Navy people. You guys adapted pretty well, it sounds like. That's cool. I need to really run. Like I know some people are like, you should run a pirate game because life's sailing. Like, yeah, but to me, it's just I don't know how to convey what it's like to be. I can't tell you what it's like to be up on the sea in a hurricane. I can't convey that utter terror and just the nonsense you go through. But I really need to run Star Trek or something and just make some good Navy in there.
Yeah, and there's lots of
I
Star
think,
Trek choices. I liked Star Trek Adventures myself.
yeah,
It was not an
nice.
easy. We won't go down this road, but that the way that particular expression of 2D20 was put on the page made it a
Sure.
special kind of challenge for those who read it to survive the experience. But
It's crazy.
the game was worth it ultimately. But
Nice. That's cool. Yeah, man. It sounds like you guys had a really good time. So I think that's the important piece that everyone still were able to role play their characters, which is good.
yeah. I
Yeah.
liked the areas of responsibility, uh,
Yes. Yeah.
and whether it's
Yeah.
clearly called out via a military or organizational structure,
Yeah.
or whether it's something that you fall into in a looser structure, like everyone defaulting to the PI is the only one who remembered to bring a 45 to the haunted house.
Yeah.
Uh, when things get scary, it's like, and or everyone looking at the professor saying, "Do you know what's happening?" He's like, "My specialty was
Yeah.
French. I know nothing that's going on." You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that's good. And it is. I think that's important for games. And it's the cooperation is real vital, I think, to continuing the joy of the tabletop. Yeah, man. Mhm.
So let's talk some practical stuff.
Okay.
So you wrote
All right.
Task Force Raven, which is
Yes.
doesn't exist without the military structure, I
Yeah.
would say. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you had to
100%.
wrestle with this from the writer's point of view. So what did you do?
Oh man. The first thing I did was I knew that people were gonna know it's military, and I made sure that we addressed up front. Your tier one operators, you're put into this weird elite unit that is also it's all tier one tolls. For people listening, tier one, that's literally the best of the best for American services. It's your, that includes Delta, PJ, 75th Ranger, all those cats. They're at a higher echelon of function and responsibility, and but they also are. That's where you see the camaraderie and what we call the grab assing, and the rank structure isn't really normally there. You're gonna call each other by first name, especially when you're out in the field on a deployment and it's a first name basis, and everyone's a dude, bro, dude, bro, dude, bro. And it's just how it is. And so I made sure to get that in the manuscript. Like, look, rank is irrelevant in Raven unless the GM determines it would be important during a brief cycle or whatever. And that's really how I did it. And it's just like cool because I didn't even put military ranks in the book at all. There are no military ranks in the book. You don't even see them. Um, and yeah, I think that's the only time I really called it out, and I just left all ranks out, and when we make it up at the table, I tell people, like, "If you know anything about the military from Hollywood or whatever, just pick a service and you tell me what rank you think you wanna be, and then we'll talk about it, and I'll help you understand what those ranks are and what that really means." I said, "But outside of it, it doesn't matter. It's your paycheck. That's it."
So would you say that as a media reference for how the operators communicate with each other in the field, you could use a film like Predator?
Yeah, it's a little sensationalized, but it's not bad. Black Hawk Down, if you're watching the Delta operators versus the Rangers who are in the chalk, because those are not 75th Ranger kids, those are just normal battalion guys. It's about how the Delta guys talk to each other. Tears of the Sun is really that movie really did not do well with outside of the veterans, but that's really a good one. Um, Let me see what else. Trying to think of some other good examples. Six handled it better than season one of six handled it better than SEAL Team did. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think of all the movies that I'm really carry on this special operations. I don't know if I think it's something, but yeah, there's a few that are out there that yeah, I think if you really want to understand how it really plays out, um, yeah, Black Hawk Down. And if you just watch those moments between the, like I said, the Deltas and guys in the Protec hats, and then the normal kids who are, you know, getting massacred left and right.
Sure.
There's a vast difference. Even how they tell you, when the Delta operator, the famous line is, if safety's supposed to be engaged, Sergeant, and you're like, this is my safety, sir. It's just no normal, no normal kid in a general ranks, even on Ranger Bat, is gonna have the balls to do that. Whereas the Delta guy is like, bro, you're a captain, you're an O3, whatever, you know. Like I'm Delta. Give me a lip. I'll just make the I'll we can make your life a miserable living hell appropriately if you overstep the social boundaries between vanilla and tier one operators.
So even with an expressed, you know,
Mhm.
visible rank, there still is the need for something beyond just the bureaucracy of the rank
Yeah. Yeah.
in
Yeah.
certain
And it
situations.
certain situations, yeah. And it really it can vary. And even not everything's not everything at tier one level is all sunshine and bunny rabbits and everyone's all happy. We had when I was working Horn of Africa, we had the task force had a new sergeant major, and he came in and was like, everybody shaves immediately. This is nonsense. You guys aren't on the field. You have no excuse not to be clean shaven. And but and I'm not saying he didn't know his business because he's a nine in the Army Special Operations program and USASOC. But the team that I was with and the dudes that we're working with is like, we're already standing out in Horn of Africa as a bunch of white dudes. So, and you're trying to make this a lot worse for us. Yeah, it's a worst best kept secret. Like you got a bunch of white guys running around with, crazy beards and all this, wearing, Solomon and Merrill hiking boots. It's quite obvious that we stand out and everyone can pick us out, but you don't want to make it too obvious because there's a lot of NGOs and other folks that are in play in these fields. And so it's just like, okay, cool. But yeah, it's an example of like that dude, he was tier one. He was attached to a tier one element. But he had his lines that he did not want crossed. No one shaves, but that's a different story.
For another day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Long, long ago, when the dews of creation were still wet upon the earth, I remember a television show. I don't know if you got to see it. It was called Tour of Duty.
Oh, yeah. Yes. That was with Vietnam, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the two main characters, so to speak, is a lieutenant fresh out of like the ROTC in the States, right? ROTC,
Yeah. RTCM.
ROTP in Canada, or it was in my day. And so he's wet behind the ears, knows nothing. He's got a sergeant who's done multiple tours of duty by
Yeah.
that point. And it was, I don't know, it was my first exposure to seeing that kind of relationship on film, but it definitely got me thinking about how hard it would be to be the young lieutenant in charge, knowing nothing, and the sergeant being responsible, and but not having the rank. I thought it was an interesting dynamic,
Yeah.
uh, certainly for drama, um, and it's something I've wanted to explore in the role playing vein, but haven't quite found the right setting for it. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing with junior officers, and so for, it's oh one to 04. I'm just gonna go in general because the Navy, we will remind our 04s that they are still in fact junior officers, and they do not qualify as real humans yet. 05 and above are senior officers. But the junior officers, oh one, oh two, and oh 03, it's one of the first things they learn when they're going through ROTC or the academies is like you are going to attach yourself to the hip of your senior NCO who's going to be married up. Like if you're in charge of for the Navy a division, so you've got 30 kids, and you're gonna have a chief, and that chief and you are going to be on the same page because you're the two khakis. And ultimately, though, you're the one who bears all the responsibility of whatever decisions get made because you make the policy. The chief petty officer enforces and implements that policy, and that's where that dynamic comes. And so normal Hollywood likes to like, yeah, because I'm the lieutenant, and like sometimes you may have that, but it would be hard pressed to have an O2 look in the face of the senior chief and be like, you'll do it or else, senior chief. Like it's gonna be a conversation. So yeah, I think for your purposes it'd be really interesting to see that. And like at my level, my O5, he's been in the Navy, he was 15 years, 16 years. He was still he knew he was a commanding officer, but he would still defer to damn near 30 years of experience across, a wide swath of the Navy. And so, he would ask questions and then be like, what do you really think? And that was this honored conversations that we had behind closed doors, and then
right?
he makes a decision and I go forward and I make sure everyone understands this is the CO's decision. And it's not like, oh yeah, the CO's full. That's the thing that really I think is you got to be careful of in gameplay. If you really want the verisimilitude of this rank structure, is the big no-no is like the enlisted coming out and being like, oh, lieutenant's an idiot, but we're gonna go ahead and do this. Like that's not really how we're trained. You're trained to here's the marching orders. Let's get it done. And feel like, oh well, the CO like, okay, well, one more time. Here's what we're gonna do, and we're gonna carry it out, and you're gonna carry it out.
Well,
I've only had to do it a couple of times, yeah, where I've had to be like, "Oh, remind people in the chief list, like, no, I am a master chief and I am your CMC, and chief or senior chief, you are going to execute. Do not make just like don't make this any more uncomfortable. It's already getting." But yeah, and so that's a dynamic. People don't see how we really do business, and so it's hard to understand that. I think a lot of people kind of understand from the show, like, well, that show was pretty good about that melding how they did business. But yeah, don't fall if you're gonna do ranks, don't fall for the Hollywood of, an O2 crapping all over their sergeant first class. That's not gonna happen. Not unless not every enlisted senior enlisted member is amazing. Okay, let me get that out of the way before we have to
sure.
the subreddit for the military comes and starts attacking. Like, I'm not saying that. In general. In
In general.
general, that's what our jobs are. Yeah. We train junior officers and make sure that they're gonna function as because one day they're gonna make the decision to get people killed on purpose. And we have to remind them of that. Like one day your orders will be orders in war, and you're gonna have to order, like the ships that we've had that we're flooding, an officer had to order a hatch closed, which killed other people. And they have to be comfortable with that decision.
Right. Have to be able to make it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Then move on.
That sort of stuff doesn't come up in the corporate environment, but
Yeah.
the living abroad, living in isolation, the
Yeah.
you're in a small pocket of, let's say, visible foreigners, right? Obvious
Yeah. Yeah.
foreigners, don't
Yeah.
speak the language, don't understand the culture, are, the classic fish out of water. That's a lot of just mundane stress to go
Yeah.
on. And so if they get to work and the supervisor and the management team are not in sync, or not presenting a unified front, or not allowing for there to be morale, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, this is, I've got some faith in our mission, or something like
Yeah.
that. It's like, well,
Yeah.
I don't know why the boss is doing this thing, and but go do your thing anyway, and or you're fired or whatever. That
Yeah.
just
That's it.
wrecks lives.
And that's a curious point. You guys get to fire people. Like we don't. It's very difficult for us to fire someone. You really gotta try to get removed from the military service.
It's harder than you might think. I
Oh wow.
mean,
Okay.
running things running things back home, if if the person is actually demonstrably incompetent and has a negative effect on the client's experience, like dropping the wedding cake at a wedding kind of
Yeah.
thing,
Sure. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
significantly easier to fire somebody in that circumstance. But in a you are not qualified in some way, like physically or mentally, to perform the duties for which we hired you, right? You're
Yeah.
continually rubbing the client the wrong way socially, or
Yeah.
always just that little bit too late, or things are just that little bit too not finished. You're not prepared enough. You know, uh,
Yeah.
the client doesn't have that sense of confidence in you that is required. Um, it's harder to it's harder to go to HR or go to the site manager or whatever and say this person needs to be let go, because then they have to find somebody else. And
Yeah. That's fair.
in my context, working in a foreign country, that means visa approvals, and it means delays, and it's documentation and
Yeah. Sure.
all kinds of stuff. So it can be a, can't you really just put up with that person? And it's like, you have no idea what you're
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah. No, I feel you. And that for us is Manny is a big issue for us too. Like it sucks, but it's just like, yeah, this person's a jerk off. Yeah, but your division size is 30 and you have 15 people. So what are you gonna do? You've
What are
got
you
the
gonna
work of
do?
30 people. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, man.
So there's some interesting
Yeah,
parallels
sure.
there, and the
It's wild.
processes, the warnings, you know. I would like to see some kind of improvement in this area, versus the, okay, now I'm writing out a letter saying I would really like to see an improvement in this area.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
So
Ah,
I think all
gosh.
that stuff can be a productive part of play, even if it's something like a heist game, like a leverage game, or
Yeah,
whatnot.
sure.
The
Yeah,
experience versus the inexperience, or
yeah. And sometimes it's a good probably a good social encounter of, an outsider has gotten wind of or, you know, like, with Delta Green or, oh my god, the Cthulhu one. Um, you're serving 2 masters, and if one of them doesn't feel like you're really keeping them in mind,
oh, the World
well, that
War
can
Cthulhu.
become
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, well, that can become that uncomfortable social interaction with a higher authority.
Well, that's
And it's gonna be all right. That's all it has to be like your next person in the chain of command for even civilians, It's like, "Oh,
yeah. That'd be an
here's
interesting
Barbara from
conversation.
HR."
Yeah. It's like
Yeah.
you were ordered to proceed through checkpoint Charlie
Yeah.
into Berlin, but you didn't. You chose a different checkpoint, putting the entire mission at risk. And then you were incommunicado for 3 hours, and there was a fire.
Yeah. That could be fun, especially since they wrote it that way. That's really cool. That could be really, really, really a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think.
Man.
Yeah.
Oh, well, fun for the game master. Some players maybe, some players no.
Right. Well, I mean that comes down to the basics, the fundamentals of organization, right? There's certain buy-in,
Yeah.
and
Yes. Yeah.
so I think the first time you play a game with rank, you're probably you're running the most risks if you've
Yeah.
never had the group in that kind of situation, and there's going to be an obvious rank structure, and we're saying at the beginning we would like this to be a factor of play in some way,
Yeah.
and then discovering whether or not they can handle it. I think that's the largest area of risk. But once you've done it and know how wacky it can get, well, I'm your captain, and you know whatever.
It's just a game. I think too it might help if you do if you do like a show don't tell moment when you're the first opening scene. If you give them like a superior officer or a superior authority figure, and just like before they get called into their meeting where they're given their mission, you get to watch this person use rank structure to just destroy other people and be like, oh, this is that might help set the tone of like, oh, okay, let me flip my mindset of like this is real. Like that admiral's actually angry and he has just destroyed an entire room full of aides.
Or is that what you want me to do?
Oh, right. Yeah. Then there's always that. I'm gonna yell at everybody. But yeah, I don't know. So I don't know. Maybe something like that might help. Who knows? I'll have to try that. Yeah, because I'm getting ready to do an Eberron game, and it takes place after a major war, but there's still things in place. And so one of the characters, he's an agent of a dragon marked house. So he doesn't just have the dragon mark, the magical, not tattoo, but the magical markings, but he actually chose to be an active agent of that house. And that means he has responsibilities. He has, we're fighting Savage Worlds, so he has some benefits to it. But I told him you will take, there's a hindrance that you will have to take, and it's called obligations. And the house watches you, and you're going to get warnings if you don't do it. And sometimes you'll be doing a mission, and the house will be like, "Hey, I know you guys are gonna find that schema in the old Cannith Forge, but yeah, that's not going to Morgrave. That's coming to us, and you're gonna do
There
it,
you
or
go.
else." Then you start suffering these consequences, even to the point of excoriation from the house if it comes bad enough. But yeah, I'm kind of curious how it plays out, because that will have rank structure for at least one character,
Yeah.
and he will be at odds with everyone else.
And that highlights an important detail that it's not rank carries authority, of
Yeah,
course, but it also carries obligation and
sure does.
expectation and that sort of stuff. So that that balance should be interesting. And
Yeah, you
so
can delegate your authority, but you cannot delegate your responsibilities.
yeah,
That's not how it works.
not at all. Which makes me think of the laundry files.
Oh, yeah.
And the way that's been presented, I think both in the books and in the game, is that as agents out in the field, there's a certain expectation that there will be a certain amount of chaos,
Yeah.
and there are different pay grades. There's different amounts of training, and that game has an expectation of humor, also like bureaucratic humor, and just the you know I'm a civil servant dealing with these forces beyond human understanding with my ID card and my hand of glory. So it
Uh,
has a like an after action report structure
yep, yep.
where, uh, like in the books, definitely where the person being interviewed by the brass, they cannot lie. They're under a geisha, right? A
Yeah, yeah.
magical compulsion to tell
Yeah,
the truth.
the ultimate polygraph.
So I think it's really interesting to all the
That's
different
crazy.
ways we can use this tool of rank.
Yeah. Yeah, I did that for, Raven as well. I put rules of engagement in the game, and I explained, the laws of armed conflict and the rules of engagement for players who don't really understand. Like, no, we don't just go out and murder people because that's not how we do business. It's very, very much frowned upon, and there are consequences. I think that's where there could be a point where that rank structure could creep back into a game, even like Raven, where it's just like, oh, well, I executed this, cartel member. Like, why would you execute a cartel member? Like, it was done. The threat is not existent at this point. and you start having those conversations. And then but I also, because I know players. So every game I write, I make sure that I can capture the narrative that I want, and I make sure that I can make you understand mechanically what I want. And so there are penalties to violating the laws of armed conflict and the rules of engagement, and that plays out. And then there's the O and after action report on a daily debrief to the senior authority figures. And then I gave them downtime, like a spin cycle of that what we go through, and it's not like, oh, I'm going to go train. It's stuff like, you doing this, you doing this. Oh, one of the possibilities is like, oh, you get in an argument with your loved one the day before you're going to go on a pump again, which is what usually happens because everyone's on high tension. Sometimes it's easier to leave when everyone's mad.
Yep.
And it's just dumb as it sounds, but I built a lot of that in the game, kind of like with that Wonder Files. I'm glad to see I'm not alone in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the books especially bring out the social
Yeah.
cost of these high pressure jobs, and
Yeah.
so
That's
that bonus
real.
on the players. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's probably some of the best role playing you're gonna get. Like, everyone knows how to shoot the guns and investigate the monsters and stuff. That becomes second nature because 'cause we're all nerds and gamers. But then you start asking like, "Oh, okay, cool, I'm gonna role play your significant other, and, I'm gonna I'm gonna I'm gonna make it feel like I'm snidely asking you, like, "Hey, can you please just make sure the lids are tight on the oil next time?" It goes everywhere. And those little comments or trigger moments where you're like, I don't give a fuck about this. It's just, but that's a genuine role play moment. Yeah. Like you said, the societal cost of a human being. And yeah, I don't know. And I don't know how comfortable everyone is with that because you don't ever know how someone grew up and kind
Right.
of,
I mean, that's
with that familiar. Yeah, that's a tough one. But that's a
yeah,
conversation.
play with your friends and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But,
Yeah.
I can tell you, playing Delta Green, the bonds in Delta Green have been my most satisfying part of playing that game is that, and um, situations like um, having a completely delusional understanding of your relationship with your
Yeah.
significant other, and
Yeah.
burning the bond in play, and then going home to patch things up with your bouquet of flowers and finding her there with her new fiance kind of thing, and it's
Yeah. Dawn. Yeah. Phone numbers change. Yeah. 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 And also it's the coworkers too. A lot of people, even in the military, you have coworkers, and I know in the civilian world, you have those people who are like, I hope you fail so bad. I cannot stand you. I don't like your personality for no good reason. And it just happens. And you'll have people who are stabbing in the back. You have people who deliberately try to sabotage things that are going on. I think I, th- that would be fun role play moments too. You know, but
real.
again, you're real. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Because like we don't want, if we're going to include it, we can include it as archetypal, as stereotypical, or at least our perception of
Yeah.
what that is,
Yeah.
and that's fine. That's fun, and maybe that's what
Yeah.
we're going to see in something like a Star Trek game or something like a Rebel Alliance kind of game where everybody's a general, it seems, and that sort of stuff. But at the same time, we can really use it to inform, to make that world feel like, if I'm going to bring my character in a, grounded in my understanding of this world, that the world is going to meet me halfway. If I'm playing this, very aggressive character, or this very passive, or this very psychotic, or this very traumatized character, what is it like to go into the grocery store? And,
Right.
it doesn't have
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
session after session of play, but it can be these moments that inform, you know,
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah, even those big set piece scenes where it's, everyone's gathered and you have these conversations like, you tell me your character is, has high anxiety, like you got raised voices and suddenly you're telling me you're just gonna jump in. Like I get it could happen, but more logically, role play your character the way they would, because you can become that diversion and it calms things down without ever uttering a word because people realize like, what the hell is happening?
yeah,
Yeah, I think this is probably more of I guess it kind of flows into status between those kind of conflicts and how it works out. Interpersonal conflicts between peer groups, it's that status thing because you got You always have the A student, and you got your average students, and it's just how it is in every environment we go through as adults. And then, you had mentioned a paladin versus a thief, and it's just like, yeah, the
Mhm.
paladin is like, do you know how much training I've gone through? I've mastered multiple weapons, and the thief is hopefully would be like, oh man, yeah, yeah, yeah. While you were doing that, I was starving to death. I was avoiding being, beaten brutally,
Right.
molested on the streets. Like I had to learn
Disease.
how to survive. Yeah, it was just like, yeah, yes, we all have things we bring to the table. Your status as a knight of the realm. I don't care.
Yeah.
You're no better than the rest of us. And yeah, I think those are the fun role play moments when you can get people who really engage at that. Like, okay,
Asymmetrical warfare in a sense. It's like
yes, yeah,
my trauma, your trauma, my trauma.
exactly, yeah. Oh man, oh gosh,
Cool.
yeah,
Well, that feels like a natural end. We've come full circle.
man, we did. We
So
didn't deviate too much.
it is possible to play with rank.
Yeah.
It is a choice.
Yes.
Say,
Yeah.
there are games that benefit from it, and I guess games that wouldn't necessarily. A nightly order of nightly.
We got Pendragon.
That's interesting, right? The
Yeah.
round table. The round
Yeah.
table. Yeah.
Some tables are more round than others.
That's right. We've got the best fighter in the realm,
Yeah.
and
Like, you got a corner, Percival? You got a corner? I didn't realize you got a corner. I thought it was around like that.
yes, but
How
I'm
we
next
all
to the
put on
king.
this. Right, yeah. Which counts. That's I know we're trying to end this, but that's a status thing of like
Totally.
where your sitting order is. And we see that when our folks will sit down around a table with the senior person present, they usually will have some people will have an ordered set where they want to see, like, I want this person, this person, this person, because of how I'm going to flow around the room to get data. But a lot of times it is a popularity contest.
Yep.
And it is crazy. And it's not what you think. Sometimes closer isn't what you want, because if you're the person who's going to want to talk the boss's head off, you're going to want to be across the table so the boss makes eye contact with you. It's ludicrous. Yes, sorry, but yes, there's another
But no,
other thing to keep in
it's true.
mind. Yeah.
Vampire games,
Yeah.
that's it's a huge thing. Where are people sitting in the room, and how are you
Yes.
moving
Yeah.
people in the room?
Yeah.
If
What is your
you're if
coterie
you're
really like?
if you're playing the prince and you're doing Elysium, what are you doing with the room is a huge deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. There you go.
All right. Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Thanks for
I'm glad I
beaming
could.
yourself across
Proud to serve.
and I'll look forward to talking to you soon.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
All right. And for everyone watching, take care. You have been listening to an episode of the Casting Shadows podcast, an extension of the Casting Shadows blog and the Runeslinger YouTube channel. If you have any thoughts to share or comments to make about this episode, any previous episode, or any episode to come, well, you can leave us a voice message via SpeakPipe at speakpipe.com/castingshadows-podcast. There are other ways to get in touch with us, and you can find them in the show notes.